She's like a sickness in my brain, a vision standing by the window pane. She ripples through the blinds and leaves me in a daze. It's in the way her body moves me, the way she grabs me and intoxicates, until the signals in my mind forget to operate. Fragile skull, I take my pleasure from my alcohol. She'll never give you any time at all. She just comes and goes, you know, and she's got me living in a chemical oven.
Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel and thank you for joining me for another coffee and crime time. Today we're talking about the disappearance of a 5-year-old girl. Summer Wells was last seen at her home in Hawkins County, Tennessee on Tuesday, June 15th, and despite an expansive manhunt for her, no sign of Summer has been found, and over 2 weeks later, she's still missing. Now, many people have requested that I talk about Summer, but once again, I did want to wait to see if new information would come out. At the time the request started coming in, it was a pretty new and evolving case. Summer's mother, Candace Bly, hadn't even spoken publicly yet, and there were a lot of rumors and speculation online. So I really wanted to wait and see what would develop, and I'm glad I did because a bunch of other stuff has come out just this past week. But before we jump right in, let's have a word from the sponsor of today's video, Native. You all know I love Native's products. I'm not shy about saying that I do and talking about them. The body wash, the sunscreen, the deodorants, I love them all. And I also love that Native offers their same great deodorant formula in a much more sustainable package. Native's plastic-free deodorant packaging is made with paperboard, and they're committed to sourcing from responsibly managed forests. But just because the packaging looks different, it doesn't mean that the deodorant inside is different. It's still aluminum, paraben, and sulfate-free. It's still vegan and cruelty-free. It's still made with the same familiar ingredients like coconut oil and shea butter, and a few swipes under the arms before you start your day still does the trick. These deodorants are non-sticky, they dry fast, which makes it perfect for when you're on the go and you don't have time to wait for your deodorant to dry because you want to put a shirt on and you don't want to have deodorant marks on the shirt. And then Native's deodorants wear all day. No matter how hot it is, no matter what activity you're doing, they last all day. And with a wide range of scents to choose from and new limited edition and sensitive scents being released all the time, Native's deodorants are the perfect way to keep you smelling fresh all summer long, no matter how hot it gets. And I actually really love the plastic-free packaging because it's smaller and more compact. It's easier to fit into my cupboards under the sink, and they're easy to throw into my purse if I'm on the go or into my carry-on if I'm traveling because, I like to be considerate of the other people around me on the plane, all right? And being an anxious flyer as I am, I tend to get a little dewy when that big metal bird is flying up in the air with me in it, sweaty, nervous, sweaty. So just to show you the difference, these are the plastic-free deodorants, and then this is the plastic packaging, so they're much more compact. You can fit 2 of the plastic-free where you can fit 1 of the plastic, and they are super easy to use. You just pull up and then push up, and there you are. The 3 scents that I have to show you are lilac and white tea, which is just a very light floral scent. I love this one. I've kind of been holding on to it because I think it's limited edition. I also have tangerine and citrus blossom. It's got some citrus notes, which I love, and citrus and herbal musk, which is probably my favorite. And you can see it's been used way more than the other ones because it smells really, really clean and delicious, but also kind of spicy, and I can smell it throughout the day when I'm moving. And I'm like, yeah, girl, yeah, you go on being your spicy self, It doesn't matter if I'm exercising or spending the day outside with the kids. Native's deodorants keep me smelling so good no matter what scent I'm using. And at the end of the day, that's really the thing. You can't go wrong no matter what scent you choose. They all smell really good. 3 plastic-free deodorants are normally $39, but if you use my link and the code StephanieH10, you'll get them for $29. That's 25% off. So once again, click the link in the description box, use my code StephanieH10 to get 3 plastic-free deodorants for just $29. Thank you so much to Native for sponsoring this video and just for being a great company. And let's dive in. And just in case anybody asks, and I know that there will be people because you always notice, You'll notice every little thing about me. I appreciate you guys, actually. It's kind of sweet. But this is it's a burn. It's a burn for my curling iron, just like the one I had on my neck a couple months ago that everyone said was a hickey. With my curling iron, it's like a curling rod. I love it. But I'm not super good at life. So what happens is I'm clumsy, I'm accident prone, and probably 1 out of every 3 times I curl my hair, I burn myself. This one is real bad. She's angry. Oh, she's angry. But don't worry, she's getting better, you know. My husband's actually super grossed out by this burn because every time I take off my gauze and show it to him, and I'm like, hey, does this look better? He's like, no, cover it back up. Just a burn, all right? Not a hickey. I don't think that this is an erogenous zone, but then again, it possibly could be, which is now giving me an idea. All right, Summer Wells. This case has been developing at an extremely fast rate, and full disclosure, this is another one of those cases where the internet has gone wild, wondering if little Summer's parents may have been involved in her disappearance. But it's not just the online message boards and the Facebook pages. There have also been what I would consider legitimate news networks that have commented about this case, and they've stated that the story of Summer's disappearance doesn't make a ton of sense if it went down exactly the way her mother, Candace Bly, has claimed it did, because her mother was the one that was home when Summer went missing. So we're going to discuss that aspect of this case as well, simply because I do have to admit there are some question marks. I don't know how I feel about this case, but I don't have a gut instinct where I would say, oh, I 100 million% believe that the parents are not involved. I do get those instincts sometimes, and I'm not saying that they're right. You know, people are going to be like, what, do you think you're Sherlock Holmes with your instinct? No, I wish, but I kind of prefer Moriarty myself. But no, I don't think my gut instinct is like the end-all be-all. But I do have to say that it has been right in certain situations. And my gut here is all over the place. And I mean, if you think about it, according to the statistics, it may not be so far-fetched that Summer's parents could possibly be involved, even though I personally do not want to believe that. You know, I don't want to believe that Summer's parents could know exactly where she is, because they have now been very vocal and they've talked a lot. I don't want to believe it, but I never do. Even people like Chris Watts and T. Stout, don't you think that I would rather those people have not harmed their children or their stepchildren? But we do know that there are people out there who do this. Lori Vallow, T. Stout, Chris Watts, Casey Anthony, allegedly. When these current cases are happening, it's really hard to look at a pair of grieving parents and even think, much less suggest out loud, that they could be responsible. But it would be, I think, irresponsible reporting to ignore that possibility in this case. We've gone over these statistics in other cases dealing with missing children, but as a refresher, let's go over them again. On average, fewer than 350 individuals under the age of 21 have been abducted by strangers in the United States per year since 2010. So the stranger abduction is what we think is the most common, because when we watch movies and TV shows and stuff, that's what's usually happening. And as a parent, it's terrifying, because you wouldn't hurt your own child, but you know there's people out there who would. So it's very easy to kind of think that stranger abductions are far more likely when they're actually not. Now, 350, it still sounds like a lot, and it's definitely 350 too many. But when you look at the actual number of children that are reported missing a year, it's in the hundreds of thousands. So that leaves stranger abductions making up only 1% of those hundreds of thousands. 95% of kids end up coming home after running away or being lost, and 99.8% of them are found and brought home alive. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children says that abductions by strangers are the rarest type of missing child case, and they're more likely to attempt to snatch a child on their way to or from school. So if a stranger is going to abduct your child, that's the most likely place it would happen. Now let's look at the stats for family abductions, which I don't think we have ever gone over in a video before. Researchers estimate that 875,000 children a year are either abducted or kidnapped by a relative. Mothers and female family members are responsible for the majority of these. I think it was something like 60%. Children who have been abducted or kidnapped are more likely to come from low-income households and have separated or estranged parents. In two-parent families, an estimated 9 children out of 1,000 experience this family abduction, as opposed to 84 out of 1,000 in one-parent households. And by no means is this me shaming one-parent households in any way, okay? I feel like I have to put a disclaimer on everything because y'all like to pop off in the comments. Not all of you. Most of you are amazing, but y'all like to pop off in the comments. There's just always going to be those people that are like, oh, 2 family parent households aren't any better than 1 family parent households. You know, that's for you to argue. I'm just telling you the numbers and the statistics. And I was a 1 parent household for a long time, so I know they both have their advantages and their takeaways and things that make them easier and less easy. So let's talk about Summer, who she was, and what happened on the day she went missing. Her full name is Summer Moon Utah Wells, and she's the only daughter of Don Wells and Candace Bly, and Summer has 3 older brothers. They all live together in a 750 square foot home near the center of an 11-acre wooded area. Now, the home itself, and I think that this is very important, the geography of the home, the location of the home, it's important to this whole case. So the home is situated on a hill. The surroundings are very wild and rural. The house is pretty isolated, located at 110 Ben Hill Road in the Beach Creek community in Rogersville, Tennessee. Rogersville is a very small town. They only have about 4,400 people living there. It's an out-of-the-way place. The nearest mall is about a 30-minute drive. Knoxville, Tennessee, which I would say is one of the most, big, well-known cities in Tennessee, that's about a 90-minute drive away. And those who live in Rogersville say that it has this very small town feel where everyone knows your business, but they're a community, and at the end of the day, they all have each other's back. Now, you'll also notice from some of the pictures you've seen of Summer and some that I'm going to show you in this video, Summer appears to have had longer blonde hair at certain times in her life and also very short blonde hair, kind of almost as if it was shaved or close cropped in some other pictures at different points in her life. Her parents have explained that Summer was kind of a tomboy. She liked to play in the mud, she liked to be outside, and she wanted to shave her head so she could look like her mother, Candace, who had shaved her head, and her 3 older brothers who also had very, short haircuts.
She was a tomboy. I shaved my head. She wanted to have her head shaved like me and the boys did.
She tried to shave her head
She tried
in
to
the
shave her
back
head
and make it, I think you can see it in some of the pictures, and it was getting out of control, so we decided to shave her head off and let it grow back long, and she shaved her head so she wouldn't feel bad, and but it didn't bother her at this point.
A lot of people have brought up this haircut or this shaved head on Summer. I personally don't find it to be super suspicious or like this huge red flag. Kids, especially at 5, they just want to emulate what they see. Bella is 4, she'll be 5 in January, but she's always telling me, can I wear that makeup? Like, I'm putting on blue eyeshadow, and she's like, I want that makeup. So I completely get that Summer would want to emulate what she saw around her, and if she liked being outside a lot, it gets hot in Tennessee, maybe it was just an easier haircut to have. So I don't at all think that that's suspicious on its own. Summer wasn't just a tomboy who didn't mind getting dirty, though. She also loved to dance and have her father twirl her around. Her parents said that she loved princesses, and her favorite movie was Frozen, and she really, really wanted to be Elsa.
She loves to dance. She would always want me. She says, "Daddy, hold my hand so I can twirl," and she would just like to twirl and twirl and twirl until my arm got tired, but. And I put out there that one of Summer's favorite songs was Godzilla, and they say, and they're jumping all over me about past tense was, well, I'm sorry about that. It's just.
She also liked the song by New Breed. It was called House, My House. She sung that a lot of times when I play it on the TV. She loved to dance.
She liked to think of herself as a princess, and and all that, like all young girls do. And
she loved Frozen. She loved to be that Elsa, and
I think she really loved to be in church because she felt a lot of love there. And I think you can't explain what that love is, but you feel it and you know it, you know, when you're young. And she felt that there, and she loved everybody in that church, or she loves everybody in that church. I should rephrase that, because they'll tear that apart as past tense, and I apologize again for that. I hope she gets to come home, you know, and I hope she gets to be with our church family again.
Our best friend in that church was Robin. She loved her to death.
Yeah, she looked up to
When
women that were...
she come to that church, she went looking for Robin. That was her favorite person.
Any woman that was professional, that
Was pretty,
yeah,
beautiful.
she looked up to those kind of women. She, you know, they were the word I'm looking for, I can't think of it, but she looked up to them. She'd give them a run for their money every day. She'd give them a run for their money, and there was times, you know, we'd be, you know, at our boys like, don't do this and don't do that. And next thing you know, the stick would come up and just whop them, you know, and it'd be like, Summer, don't do that. You
Summer
know?
was the boss of the family.
Yeah,
She,
typical girl.
when they get out of line, she'd put them in line.
She'd do her best.
She loved to play in the mud and the water and swing on her swing and enjoy dirt.
When I run the lawnmower around, she would run behind me. When the boys run their bikes around, she, as fast as that little bike could go, she would be behind them running and keeping up with them, no problem. You know, she loved to run. She just loved to run, and she could pull herself up on that swing, her full body weight with her two hands, and she could do that. None of the other boys can do that, but she can.
Was she in school yet?
No,
No.
she's going this year.
This was supposed to be her first year of
She's been,
kindergarten.
we did all the, what?
I took care of everything.
Yeah.
I had her already took on all of her shots and registered in the school ready for this year.
On Tuesday, June 15th, Summer was at home with her mother and grandmother. Summer's grandmother is also named Candace, and Summer's grandmother, who is her maternal grandmother on her mother's side, she also lived on the property in a separate structure, because I believe that this whole 11 acres belongs to them. Because when I checked the property records to see how big the house was or when it was built, et cetera, it looked like they bought that land without a house on it, and then they put a house on it. On this day, Summer's 3 older brothers were home as well, and her father, Don, was at work. I'm going to let Candace Bly explain to you what happened that day in her words.
Me and my mother and her were planting flowers. And we went in after we got done washing our hands, and she got a piece of candy from Grandma, and she wanted to go back over and see her brothers. And I said, okay, and I walked her all the way over to the porch, and I watched her walk into the kitchen where the boys were watching TV. And I told the boys, I said, watch Summer, I'll be back. And within 2 minutes I came back, and I asked the boys where their sister was, and they said, she went downstairs, Mom, to play with her toys in the playroom. I said, okay. And I yelled downstairs for her a couple times, and I didn't get no answer, which was unusual because usually she always answers me. And so I went down there to check, and she was nowhere in sight. She was just gone.
I was at work and I got a frantic call from my wife, and I said, hang up and call 911. And I called 911, and I come from work and drove home as fast as I possibly could, and drove to the bottom of our property, and I seen my boys here walking around and my neighbors all looking and searching, and I knew right then that she was gone, because she don't never leave the property by herself anyway.
Okay, so that's a lot. That's a lot to unpack. Now, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, henceforth known in this video as the TBI, they said that a family member called and reported Summer missing at around 6:30 p.m. And she was last seen wearing a pink shirt and gray shorts, and she would probably be barefoot. So we heard Candace's version of events and Don's version of events. The 911 call has not been released, but the dispatch call, so when dispatch calls the police to tell them where to respond to an incident, we have that. And it tells kind of a different story.
Being around from 110 Ben Hill Road off of Beach Creek should be the first residence on your right. Reference to a missing 4-year-old. The parents have called in and advised that the mother had went for a walk, came home, now they can't find her. They've been yelling for her. She's been gone for about 10 minutes now.
We are under the impression from Candace that she could not find Summer after not having eyes on her for just a few minutes. And after looking for her for a while and yelling her name with no response, Candace called her husband Don at work, and then he called the police, and he told them that his wife had been out for a walk or a run. And when she got back, Summer was gone. Now, Candace, in her initial statement, says nothing about this walk. And later, when she does an extended interview, she's asked about this dispatch call and, like, why did your husband say you were on a walk? And Candace was like, no, that's not what happened. I do not go for walks around the property because I'm scared of the bears and the snakes and the coyotes.
I don't go on walks around here or runs because I'm scared of the bears and snakes and even the coyotes that are around here.
In the initial statement, in the initial retelling of that day, Candace mentioned also nothing about going for a walk. She just said they were planting flowers. Summer wanted to hang out with her brothers. Candace brought her there, came back a few minutes later. Summer was gone. This could just be a miscommunication, however. You know, when Candace initially called Don, she just found out her daughter was gone. Maybe she was panicking or yelling or not able to communicate clearly because of her heightened state of anxiety. And her husband, Don, misunderstood what she was trying to say, therefore giving inaccurate information to the dispatcher. There are also a lot of people who think it's suspicious that Candace called her husband at work before she called the police. I personally don't. At first, when I was just giving it a cursory view, I was like, yeah, that's kind of shady. But then I put myself in her shoes and I thought about it and I was like, okay, if I can't find my kid for 10 minutes, I'm going to be freaking out. But I do rely on my husband a lot to sometimes bring me down when I'm, off the wall or overreacting. So I understand that she may have called him just to be like, did you come and pick her up? Is there something I don't know? Was a friend supposed to come today? Was a family member taking Summer for the day? Am I overreacting or should I call the police? And then at that point, Don says he told her to hang up and call the police. But then he also said that he hung up and called the police. So I don't know if they both called the police or what's going on with that. So it doesn't seem super suspicious to me that Candace would call Don before calling the police, because I think that in certain circumstances, I probably would have too, just to check and make sure there wasn't something I was missing. Now, the dispatcher also told police that Don was at work when he called her. He called 911, he got this dispatcher, and he told her that he was at work, but he was on his way home. She mentions that Don works an hour away from where he lived, yet in his interview later, Don Wells claimed he made it back to the house before anybody arrived, so before the police got there. And obviously, that one is hard to explain since the dispatcher says to police that at the time of the 911 call, Summer had been missing for only about 10 minutes, and the police then responded to that address right away. Now, apparently, Don Wells works in a town called Jonesboro, Tennessee. I don't know exactly where he works in that town, but putting the town into GPS and navigating to Ben Hill Road, where he and the Wells family lived, shows that it's about a 39-minute drive, probably more at 6:30, because, people leaving work, going out to dinner, whatever. So it would be very tough for Don to have gotten home from work before the police showed up, but that's what he says happened. Now, I kind of looked on the Facebook pages and the Reddit pages and stuff to see if this had been explained, because like I've said before, people give these web sleuths and these people in these forums a bad rap, but some of them really know their shit. They're very up to date on the case. They pay attention to it. They put the clues together. It's very impressive. So I kind of looked on there and I didn't find anything specific to say that this sort of time discrepancy had been cleared up. But if you know more about it or if I'm reading it wrong, let me know. Okay, so there's a few videos that were taken of Summer on the day she went missing that have been going around online and everybody's speculating about them. So I am going to talk about them. The first one is this TikTok video that Candace Bly posted on her TikTok account around 12:34 p.m. on June 15th. So here's the story about how this video came to be taken. Candace said that her mother, remember also named Candace, had knee surgery on the morning of the 15th. So Candace brought her mother to the knee surgery And then afterwards, they had to pick up a prescription from Walgreens. So they go to Walgreens, but the prescription's going to take, 20 minutes or so to fill. So while they're waiting, Candace decided to go across the street. There's a park there called Warrior Path State Park, and there's like a little swimming hole. And Candace said, it was hot. While they were waiting for the prescription, she thought, why don't I let Summer swim? There was somebody else that was with them besides Candace and Summer's grandmother, Candace. There was a 15-year-old boy. Now, we don't know his name. Candace did say it in an interview, but it was blacked out or beeped out, so you couldn't hear the name she was saying because he's a minor. And I'm going to play you a clip from the interview where the reporter asks her about this, and the reporter says, were you alone? And Candace says something like, yes, when we got home, we were alone. So it kind of seems like she was avoiding the question of whether this 15-year-old boy was with them. Candace said that the boy was with them because he was having problems with his grandmother, and he thinks and then it's beeped out again. I think that she said bitch, but then, she's telling the reporter, I'm sorry, that's what he calls her. That's what he said.
We were waiting on my mother's prescription from the drugstore at Walgreens on Fort Henry and Moreland Drive. And Warriors was straight across, so we just figured I'd take her over there to go swimming for a little bit while we waited on my mom's prescription. We weren't even there but 20 minutes.
And so then Summer came back here with you later that afternoon, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so was there anybody else with you?
No, not when we came home, no.
Was there anybody else swimming with you? People, I think, had questions about
wanted to go with because he didn't want to be around his grandmother because, as he would call it, she's a I'm sorry, that's what he said. And I said, okay, well, I gotta go pick up Mom from the hospital, and then we gotta go do Walgreens, and then I'll take you home. Well, we had to wait for Mom's prescription at Walgreens, so we just went up to Warriors. There was all kinds of trash everywhere at Warriors when we showed up. And I let Summer out to play. And we just stood there for about 15, 20 minutes. And then we all got back in the truck and went and got Mom's prescription. And I took him home. And then we came home.
About how many hours was that before she was reported missing?
I really can't tell you all the time details because time gets away from you when you're trying to enjoy yourself.
Is there anything else you wanted to address about the TikTok or any rumors or things you've seen about that while we're on that topic?
I don't really have no more than that.
So this 15-year-old boy, we really don't know who he is, what his relationship is to Candace and her family, but he was with them that day. Now later, this guy went to this area specifically to kind of look around and see if there was any evidence, I believe, left over from what had happened with Summer that day, or if there was anything there that would indicate where she was. And he found a black garbage bag full of alcoholic beverages. And so then there was rumors and speculation going around online that Candace had purchased this alcohol or these alcoholic beverages. I think they were wine spritzers or something for herself and the 15-year-old boy. This has never been confirmed, but people have gone on her Facebook and found posts that she's made where she says, Mommy needs her medicine while she's holding an alcoholic beverage. To kind of make the leap that Candace would provide alcohol to this underage kid. Candace says in the interview she doesn't directly address the rumors or the speculations or the fact that this guy went there and took this video of this garbage bag, but she says when we got there was all kinds of trash all over already. So she's definitely trying to let people know that whatever that guy found, that didn't belong to us. So after leaving Walgreens, apparently they went to the grocery store and then they dropped this boy off at home around 2:30. And this is a timeline that Candace herself gave. Then there's another video, a video that apparently was accidentally taken in the car on the way home after dropping the boy off by Candace's mother. And it's just a very short video of Summer asleep in the back seat. And she's kind of got her arms around some milk jugs or something. And a lot of people speculated online and in these message boards that at this point, Summer was already dead. I don't think that.
She still got her arm up?
No.
Oh, that's what I was trying to catch.
Just for the record, I get why it's a potential theory or whatever. It's twisted and dark as all hell. I don't believe this she is. People have mentioned that her eyes are like not completely closed. Kids sleep like that. My daughter sleeps like that. Sometimes her eyes are so wide open when she's sleeping, it literally scares the shit out of me. But what this video and the TikTok video do is give us a better timeline of that day, because later Candace would say that she didn't remember exactly how much time passed between when they got home from the swimming hole and when Summer disappeared. But here we can clearly see there is a sort of timeline. They were swimming around 12:30. They dropped the 15-year-old boy off around 2:30. And then this video was accidentally taken at 3:09 on their way home. So we know that she would have had to have disappeared within just a couple of hours of being home. We know that Summer was reported missing around 6:30. We know she got home sometime after like 3:10. So that just gives about 3.5 hours between when she gets home from swimming at Warrior Path State Park and when she disappears. So once the 911 call came in, investigators responded to the home of Summer Wells and a massive manhunt began that would last far longer than anyone involved expected it to. An Amber Alert was issued, and later that night it was upgraded to an Endangered Child Alert. A command post was set up at the Mount Carmel Free Will Baptist Church, which was pretty close to Summer's home, and this is the area that they would focus searching in around Summer's home. Around 60 to 80 people participated in the initial search, which started that Tuesday night. The TBI stated that the circumstances surrounding Summer's disappearance were unclear, and they didn't have any potential suspects or vehicles that they wanted the public to look out for, but when they did have that, if and when, they would update the public. But since it was an ongoing investigation, they could not release any details. The TBI requested that residents in the Ben Hill area check their home security surveillance cameras and trail cameras for any sign of the missing 5-year-old girl, and they also encouraged people to check out buildings, sheds, or any other possible spaces on or around their properties where little Summer may have gone into, looking for shelter. The search on Tuesday for Summer lasted well until after dark, but they found nothing. The next day, Wednesday, June 15th, the first press conference about Summer's case was held by the TBI Public Information Officer, Leslie Earhart, and the Hawkins County Sheriff, Ronnie Lawson. Sheriff Lawson said that there were more than 100 people from 19 different agencies searching for Summer, and he told the public that they didn't need to help search for Summer because the police and law enforcement, they had that part covered with like the professionals, but law enforcement would just like the public to keep their eyes and ears open. The sheriff also explained that the search thus far had been difficult due to the rough terrain and the lack of cell phone service, and this is because where Summer disappeared from, where her home is, it's a very hilly area. So if you're someone who lives in a kind of remote area where there's like lots of hills and valleys, you'll understand that cell phone service is inconsistent at best. But this made communication between different people and different agencies who were searching pretty much non-existent. Sheriff Lawson said, quote, "We can't hardly communicate at all on our radios, and cell phones are out of the question," end quote. Incident Commander Captain Tim Coop informed the media that AT&T had brought in cell signal boosters in an attempt to increase reception, but it really wasn't working. It was still very spotty. Besides not being able to communicate via cell phone, the radios that the local police had to use were at least 20 years old, and the county had purchased a new radio system just the week before Summer went missing, but they were still waiting for it to be installed on top of a Hawkins County mountain, which clearly is not going to help the search for Summer at this point. Hawkins County Mayor Jim Lee said that he expects the new system to be installed within a few weeks. Robbie Swafford of the Spartanburg Search and Rescue Team said that the search was extremely challenging with the steep and dense terrain along with the intense heat in the later parts of the afternoon. Add to that communication difficulties, it was just really hard going. During the June 16th press conference, we, the public, were told that it was too early to determine whether or not foul play was involved with Summer's disappearance, but they did say that Summer's family had been cooperative. By 10:04 p.m. that evening, the investigation had received 30 tips, but Summer was still missing. On Thursday, June 17th, another press conference was held, and TBI officer Leslie Earhart referred to the search for Summer as, quote, outside the norm. Once again, it was repeated that the circumstances surrounding Summer's disappearance were unclear, but if law enforcement at the TBI, they did come across information that indicated she'd been taken or kidnapped, and law enforcement then had a description of a suspect or vehicle, they would update the public immediately. At the time that this press conference was given, ground crews had covered a 1-mile radius around Summer's house, and they hoped to have covered 2 miles by that end of day.
Here's what we can tell you. Numerous residents and individuals associated with the family have been interviewed. Surveillance video and photos have been reviewed, as well as other potential digital evidence. We're still working to identify everyone in the area on the afternoon that Summer went missing. One of you asked us in a previous briefing the standard amount of time it takes for a case like this to be resolved. While every case is different, this one is definitely outside of the norm. Typically, in an investigation like this one, we have some idea of where the case is headed and what might have happened within a few days. In this situation, despite doing everything within our power and exploring all avenues, the circumstances leading to Summer's disappearance remain unclear. I understand the lack of answers frustrates you in the public, but trust me, no one is more frustrated than we are. If we develop information that will lead to locating Summer, we will share that with you first and foremost.
I know there's a lot of social media going on out there, a lot of detectives going on, but they're absolutely useless unless these people that's 100% positive calls 1-800-TBI-FIND. That means nothing. We're monitoring all social media and everything that you all put out from people that you all interview. And I assure you, you'd have to work very hard to find somebody that we hadn't talked to. They may not tell you. And we also did a roadblock, which helped at the same time that she was reported missing, to see if we come in contact with somebody that's been working that we could see. Obviously, there's nothing came out of that, but it's just another tool that we've used to make this happen.
The rugged mountainous terrain continues to cause problems. This has slowed search operations down in these areas, but please be rest assured, while incurring these conditions, we are still searching with an aggressive approach with extreme attention to detail. These terrains and conditions have exhausted crews both physically and mentally. We are still utilizing local and regional resources, but have had to call upon and utilize resources from Middle and West Tennessee, along with out-of-state resources, to bring a fresh set of eyes and rested bodies into the search operations.
This same day, Summer's father, Don Wells, who was not ready to go on camera, gave his first official statement to News Channel 11, saying, quote, "She would never leave our hill, and I think someone snuck up on her and grabbed her. I don't think she's in the area because the dog goes down the road and that's the end of the trail, but I don't know that for a fact. The way she just disappeared, she would never do that." End quote. So we have law enforcement and the TBI saying that they don't have evidence that Summer was snatched by someone, but her father and later her mother would insist that this is exactly what they believe happened to their daughter, and they'd felt that way since the very moment they'd found out she was gone. On Friday, June 18th, Summer had been missing for 3 days. She's 5 years old, but the officials were still saying at that point that there was no evidence she'd been kidnapped or abducted, which has been driving me crazy, by the way, because where else do you think she is? Like, in my opinion, clearly we have foul play here. Clearly something's not right. This is not a case of a little girl just wandering off and getting lost because you've been searching for days. You would have found her by now. At 2:30 p.m., a third press conference was held, during which we discovered, we the public, that more resources had been brought in for the search, including a dive team, and the search had now expanded to more than 100 people from 41 different agencies. Searchers had covered 688 acres and received 85 tips. TBI officer Leslie Earhart urged the public to stop sharing speculation and rumors on social media, and she said that all avenues were being explored. Sheriff Ronnie Lawson said that no search warrants had been issued, and every search they had conducted so far had been done with the permission of the property owner. Now, I think in this situation, he's probably talking about not only the Wells property, but neighbors and things like that, who they probably went onto their property and said, hey, we want to just check and see if Summer might be here. Do you mind if we search? And the people who lived at the houses said, yeah, sure, search. We do know that there was police officers and a police presence outside of the Wells home. But according to the sheriff, There have been no search warrants executed, so we don't really know what they're doing, but we do know that they said they're going through like electronic evidence and stuff like that, so maybe they did take the computers and the cell phones of the family. We don't really know. They haven't released that. At 7 p.m. that evening, a vigil was held for Summer at the Rogersville First Methodist Church. Summer's mother, Candace, who had thus far stayed out of the public eye, did not attend, but Don Wells and one of his sons did attend, and Don spoke to reporters outside the church, thanking the police and the public for their help.
We're trying to think, beat our brains out. We've covered everything that we can think of already.
Investigators say they have followed up on 85 tips so far. Wells says he is overwhelmed by the massive numbers of personnel on site.
We just really appreciate everybody trying to help that they have, law enforcement and all these volunteers that are here. I've never seen anything like this in my entire life.
On Saturday, the entire Wells family attended a service at the Kingsport Seventh-day Adventist Church. This was their usual church that they usually went to service at. Both Don and Candace were there with their 3 sons, and afterwards, Don Wells spoke about this experience, their first time going to church as a family without Summer. He said, quote, "They had a vigil for Summer, and they had all types of pictures up on the screen. Summer went around that whole church and visited everybody, and so when we first went in there, we both broke down, of course. Me and my wife both broke down, and we had to go outside. They've been very supportive, of course. Everybody has. Just missing Summer. I wish she could be here. The thoughts of her not being able to be there with the people she loves so much, it's heartbreaking," end quote. Don also commented on the amount of negative social media attention his wife Candace had been facing, saying, quote, "There's some pretty negative stuff online. My wife can't help but be on there because she's looking for clues. She can't help it. This negativity is tearing her apart. That's why she doesn't want to do any interviews, because she's afraid they'll lash out at her even more. They're calling her Boswell something, but I can't remember what it was. Just all kinds of negative stuff," end quote. Okay, so some stuff to unpack there. And I want to be fair and tell you my thought process. When Don said that Candace was online and on these message boards, the ones that are talking about her daughter's disappearance, I initially was like, ugh, I probably wouldn't do that, because I know how vicious people can get online, especially in cases like this where a child's missing and there's suspicions of the parents. Like, I know, and I feel like that would just break me. However, thinking about it more, if she was looking for clues as to maybe who had her daughter or if somebody knew something, I could understand that, I guess. I don't know. Let me know in the comments what you think. If this was you, if you were in Candace Bly's position, would you be going on these Facebook groups and stuff to find clues or see what people were saying? Would that be something you would do? I can't settle one way or the other. It's kind of one of those situations where you'd have to be in it to know how you would react. Also, I mean, if you think about it, I'm not saying whether Candace is a good person or a bad person or an innocent person or a guilty person, but if you think about it, she was kind of right to avoid doing interviews, because when she did do interviews, that's exactly what happened. People picked apart what she said and have just analyzed her interviews an incredible amount. So that's exactly what happened. But if she's responsible in any way for what happened to Summer, I guess that's a good thing, because that's kind of how Chris Watts got caught. That's how we all figured out that he was full of it, because his interviews, it was just so obvious that he was lying, and it was so obvious that his story changed, and he was talking about his kids in the past tense, and there was just so many red flags in his interviews. So maybe she avoided the spotlight and the cameras because she didn't want that to happen, but then she was like, well, I gotta go on or it's gonna seem suspicious that I'm not talking. Who knows? Now, what people seem to be calling Candace online is Megan Boswell. Megan Boswell is the mother of Evelyn Boswell, the 15-month-old baby girl who disappeared from Sullivan County, Tennessee in December of 2019. Now, obviously, and to be completely fair to Candace Bly and Don Wells, these are very different cases. I think the fact that Sullivan County is just an hour from Hawkins County, where Summer lived, maybe that gave people in the area a sense of deja vu. But really, to be fair, Evelyn was last seen in December of 2019, but she wasn't reported missing by anyone in her family until the following February, which is why Tennessee has just passed a new law called Evelyn's Law that will require parents to report their child's disappearance within 24 hours of determining them to be missing. And this applies to children younger than 12. I think this law is a great start, personally, but in my opinion, 24 hours is still way too long. It's not 24 hours from when the child goes missing, but from when it's discovered by, their parents that they're missing. And why in the hell would anyone need 24 hours to report their under 12-year-old child missing? It should be an hour max, right? And from the timeline we have, It seems that Summer Wells was reported missing within minutes of her disappearance, so it's not really the same kind of case at all. But as we know with Evelyn Boswell, she was later found dead, and her mother has been charged with this, so I think that that's where the comparison also came in, which is unfair because we don't know yet what Candace has done or hasn't done or is involved with or isn't involved with. Okay, so during the same time period, I think it was either that day or the next day when Don was talking about the negative online comments, he made a statement about how his other children are dealing with their little sister being gone. He said, quote, "They're handling it better for some odd reason that I don't understand. My oldest boy, he'll say from time to time that he misses his sister. Your mind has a way of forgetting every now and then. I find myself doing it too, but then it comes flooding all back, of course. I might get away from it for 15 to 25 seconds, but it will all come back. That's the first thought in my mind when I wake up." End quote. Okay, I know I'm going to get shit for saying this, because I always tell people to reserve your opinion and your judgment until more information comes out, but this whole statement just did not sit well with me. And sometimes I have to share with you guys what my gut feeling is, what I'm feeling, because I don't know if it's legitimate. I don't know, but you guys tell me. So later, Candace would be asked this question, how the boys were handling it. She gave a very different answer. She said they cried all the time. It was just devastating for them. So maybe the boys just feel more comfortable sharing that kind of emotion around their mother. I don't know. Also, Don says that your mind has a way of forgetting things, but then it comes flooding back. But this isn't 2 weeks or 2 months or 2 years after Summer has vanished. He said this just after a couple of days. And I just don't understand or see how after only a couple of days, not knowing whether your 5-year-old daughter is alive or dead, not knowing who she's with or what they could be possibly doing to her, every minute that she's not in front of you, how your brain could let you forget that for even 15 seconds. I don't know. Since I've started looking into Summer's case, it's been hard for me to stop thinking about her throughout the day. I didn't even know her, but just the fact that there's this little 5-year-old girl out there missing, and we don't know where she is, and I just have these visions in my head, like, is she crying? Is she cold? Is she alone? Is someone hurting her? Is she being fed? Is she starving? What's happening? It just constantly, haunts me. So I don't know how Don Wells could forget for even 15 seconds or let his brain let him forget. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments. Am I going overboard here? Am I reading into this too much? It's very possible. Don Wells went on to repeat something that he says a lot, that he doesn't believe his daughter is still in the area that law enforcement was searching, which is the general area around their home. He said, quote, "I just appreciate everybody for their efforts because I know they're trying hard. They're not stopping, but I just feel that she's not in the area, and they know that. They still have to search." End quote. Okay, once again, your 5-year-old daughter's gone. You believe with all your heart and soul that she's been taken by someone, but the police are only searching in the general area of her house, your house, which you state repeatedly that Summer is no longer in this area. You say you know it, the police know it, but you understand that they have to search there anyways? If my kid was gone and I knew in my heart that she'd been taken, and I knew law enforcement knew she'd been taken, but they weren't out there looking for her, they were spending all their time and resources searching an area that she hasn't been in since the day she went missing, I would not be thanking them or be like, oh, I understand why you have to search here, got to follow protocol and just search here, even though we all know she's not here. I would not be that chill and understanding. I'd be screaming from the rooftops that they need to expand their search. I'd be livid that as every minute, every hour, every day passed, my daughter was getting further away and police were still looking around my house. Now, it does seem to me as if Don Wells would prefer if law enforcement not be searching around the area from which Summer went missing. So there's, a couple of reasons for this. Theoretically, he could genuinely know in his bones that Summer got kidnapped, and so there was no chance she would be there around the house. Or he could be trying to get law enforcement out of that area for a reason, send them in a different direction. She's not here. You guys have searched. She's not here. Go someplace else. Maybe Summer is in that area, and maybe Don knows it, so he doesn't want her to be found. That's just speculation, though. That's the only 2 reasons I could really figure out why Don would continue to vocalize and verbalize that Summer was not where the police were looking, but then Don would also not throw an absolute fit that the police kept looking there. That's the only reasons I can think of it. By Saturday, the TBI had gotten 113 tips, and after the usual day search concluded, rescue workers were called back after dark, and they could be seen with flashlights out in a field into the early morning hours of Sunday while a helicopter flew overhead, also searching for Summer. The TBI said that they'd responded to this area near Beach Creek Road, near the Wells home, while following up on a lead, but they'd found nothing. Speaking about this search, Don Wells told reporters, quote, "They received some sort of tip, and we seen blue lights up and down Beach Creek, and the helicopter flew until like 4 a.m. looking around, so we were up until 4 a.m. being hopeful that they'd found something. But there's nothing. They've been all through there with a fine-toothed comb several times over. She's not in the area," end quote. So once again, he's saying that she's not in the area. By Sunday, 35 agencies from Tennessee, Georgia, Ohio, Virginia, Alabama, and North Carolina had joined in on the search for Summer. And by the end of the day, the total acres searched since Tuesday, the day she went missing, was 2,400 acres. Don Wells went back to work the next day, Monday, and he told the Times News that he believed Summer had been taken by a trafficking ring who'd found her on Facebook and then tracked her down. Tuesday, June 22nd, marked 1 week since Summer had vanished. More law enforcement agencies became involved, more acres were searched. There was still no sign of the 5-year-old girl. Now, a lot of stuff happened around this 1 week anniversary because at this point, many people were becoming suspicious as to why no sign of Summer had showed up yet. She was 5. She'd allegedly only been out of her mother's sight for a few minutes. How far could she have gotten on her own? There's also the issue of the location of the Wells home in a very rural, out-of-the-way area up on a hill. The family continued to say that Summer had been abducted at the same time that the TBI was saying there was no evidence to support that. And I guess it does seem like a kidnapping would be the most likely scenario. Since she was so young, she really couldn't have gotten far, wandering off by herself. The searchers had been scouring the area for a week, calling her name, and if she'd been lost or hiding somewhere because she was scared, she would have been found. She would have come out. But the kidnapping theory, it seems a little bit more far-fetched when you take in the location of the Wells house. There was no sign of forced entry at the house, and both Don and Candace had said that Summer would never leave the hill that their house was on by herself. I think Candace said, she usually wouldn't go any further than her swing. In an interview, Don said he thinks someone pulled up in a car and grabbed Summer from outside the house and then ran back down to the car, tossed her in, and drove away.
Well, I knew right away that she was abducted. I knew that right away, and that's what I told them from the beginning. But they have to go through their, I forget the word.
Investigation.
They have to do one step at a time, I guess. But I'm sorry that they had to spend so many man hours in these woods and everything. I've seen them limping and everything else, and I feel for them. But I just wish there was a way that neighbors could search neighbors' houses, and then if they're not willing, get a search warrant or something. But there's just no way you can search every single house, in the eastern United States or whatever. My biggest fear is, her being tormented or locked in a dungeon or basement or something, because she loved to be outside all the time. That was her. Unfortunately, her downfall. 'Cause a lot of times the boys would be inside and we'd be like, "Where's Summer? Why'd you leave her out there alone? Go get Summer now." And that's happened over and over again. And we'd come out and she would always be close by, but we was always coming up. She had to be outside. She was an outdoor person.
She loved to be outside.
And I'm so afraid that she's locked away. She's such a loving heart and everything, and I'm afraid that she won't be able to, locked away where she can't be outside or play with a puppy or anything, love nature, and that's my greatest fear, that she's not able to do any of these things anymore, or that she could possibly, I don't want to think she's dead, but it's a possibility.
This house is isolated, okay? It's not near a main road. It's up on a hill. It's a real tough pill to swallow that someone was driving around, saw this little girl, like a crime of opportunity, and then randomly said, oh, let me take her. The opportunity for some random person to just be in the area and see Summer, it's very slim. There's really no reason anybody would be driving around that area. There's not any stores. There's very few residences even. It's very spread out. Why would somebody just be driving around that area?
going about 45 miles an hour, and you'll see what the terrain looks like and how far it is to the Ben Hill Road area where Summer Wells was missing and where the rescue efforts are taking place. At the end of Beach Creek Road, here we come. We're approaching Ben Hill Road. See the sign there, and you can see that over this mound here. This is that's it.
Unless Summer was specifically targeted by someone who knew her, knew where she lived, and went there specifically to take her. But if someone drove up to the house, Summer's mother, grandmother should have heard something. They should have heard a car engine, doors opening, closing, maybe some sort of struggle, Summer yelling, Summer screaming. Even if the guy had his hand over her mouth, maybe she'd be muffled, but you would still hear some sort of disturbance. And technically, if the person didn't just drive up the hill and then, park in the Wells driveway, they would have had to have parked at the bottom of the hill and then run up the hill in plain view, and then grab Summer and run back down the hill with her, once again in plain view, while this 5-year-old is kicking and screaming and trying to get away, unless they knocked her out or drugged her or something. But was there enough time for that? Because according to Candace, it was just 2 minutes, a couple minutes between when she left Summer with her brothers and when she came back to find out where Summer was, and Summer was nowhere to be seen. Just a couple of minutes. A court TV segment mirrored these feelings that I had and that others have, saying that the story just doesn't really make sense.
All right, Ansley, describe, I saw some aerials there. I've got a flavor for it, but you're much closer to all this. Describe the home, the neighborhood. I mean, because I'm trying to get in my mind how someone could get to that home to abduct this girl and get away without anyone necessarily from the home or notice or see. How would you describe the area, access to the home, etc.?
This area here is very mountainous. It's very rural, as you heard the incident commander mention earlier. It is definitely a tough terrain for these crews to be searching in. It's also very hot here. That area where Summer lives, her home is kind of far off from the road. I'd say it's maybe half a mile to 3/4 of a mile off of the main road in the Beach Creek area. And her home does sit up on a hill. It is fairly difficult to get up to. I agree with you there.
Would they have to know where that home is, or are you going to casually drive by that home? Or would you have to target that home and say, okay, I know there's a home up there, and I know there's some kids. I'm going to park my car here. I'm going to go to that home. I mean, if you drove, can you drive the car all the way up to the house? Would people in the house not be able to see it? I mean, this is the part that I'm not quite putting together because it seems like it's so remote to me, but I haven't been there.
It is very far back off of the road. In my opinion, you do probably need a reason to go up to this house. It's not just a place that you would drive up. And Ben Hill Road is also not really a road that you would drive up to either. However, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation has not identified that this could be an abduction yet. They just continue to say that the circumstances surrounding what happened to Summer are unclear. There are just, like you said, a lot of unknowns, but this area is kind of far back and the home is up on a hill, so you would most definitely have to have a reason to go up there.
All right, Jennifer Shen, if we're talking about an abduction, I guess one of the challenges that we heard from Ansley is cell service, right? One way we often kind of try to figure out whose cell phone is pinging off the towers, who is in the area, and it creates leads sometimes for investigators. It's going to be tough to do that in this one, huh, Jennifer?
It will be tough to do that, and it looks like in this case, you really need to find her to find evidence. There just doesn't seem to be any evidence of any kind, and I agree. It's pretty remote, and for someone to have gone there and taken her specifically, then you wonder if that person had been watching her, if that was something that had been planned, because it's not something you would just sort of drive by and it's a moment of opportunity sort of abduction, if that's what happened.
Right, and again, this is what the parents are saying they believe happened, that there was some sort of an abduction. She's 5 years old. I mean, and it seemed like Mom said within a few minutes they realized something was going on here. How far is a 5-year-old going to be able to get? I mean, So, you know, you go to the mall, the kids, they kind of dart off. We've seen that happen. This is rough terrain, though, Jennifer.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of surprising to me that they could lose her in 2 minutes. So you wonder how long it was. Maybe it seemed like 2 minutes. Maybe it's a little bit longer. And the terrain is rough, and you know, it would be scary for a 5-year-old to be out there alone in that. So, you know, with all those people searching and using the kind of search techniques that they are, if she was there, it seems like they would have found her. So that is certainly concerning.
Summer's parents have also both referred to her in the past tense multiple times, which has always been a red flag in these situations. I don't want to read too much into it, but, you know, they definitely have, and they're aware that they have, because at one point, Don was talking, and he referred to Summer in the past tense, and then he was like, oh, let me rephrase that, because I don't want to refer to her in the past tense, because everybody's, like, getting on my case about that.
One of Summer's favorite songs was Godzilla, and they say, you know, and they're jumping all over me about past tense was, you know, well, I'm sorry about that. It's just...
She also liked the song by New Breed. She loved to dance.
And I think she really loved to be in church because she felt a lot of love there, and she loved everybody in that church. Or she loves everybody in that church. I should rephrase that because they'll tear that apart as past tense, and I apologize again for that.
She loved to play in the mud and the water and swing on her swing. And
we was always coming up. She had to be outside. She was an outdoor person. Maybe we won't never see her again, you know. So I start thinking in past tense, sorry. But I'm trying to keep hope up. I'm trying to keep my prayers up and all that.
It was also on Tuesday that, after speculation about their involvement, Don Wells let the media know that his wife had gone to the district's attorney's office that day and taken a lie detector test with the FBI, which she had passed. The TBI was asked to confirm this, and they responded that it was no secret the TBI has a polygraph unit, but they would not be discussing specifics. So they didn't confirm or deny whether Candace Bly had taken a lie detector test or whether she had passed it. By this time, though, information about the pasts of both Don and Candace had been uncovered, causing a whole new level of speculation. And I mean, it is kind of crazy, like everything that came out, kind of all, not at once, but one right after the other. It was like new discovery, new discovery, new discovery, and each time you were like, whoa, that doesn't look good. Don Wells has been convicted of multiple felonies and has served prison time for convictions involving drugs and burglary in Arkansas, Utah, and Texas. In the late 90s and the early 2000s, he was also cited for several parole violations. Now, Don said that while he was in prison, he found God, and he started studying the Bible in an attempt to change because he wanted to be a better person. However, he was arrested again in October of 2020. This was after his wife Candace accused him of domestic assault. The police responded to the home on Ben Hill, and they found Don in his vehicle in the driveway, reeking of alcohol, and there was also an illegal pistol in the glove compartment, something he was not allowed to have because he was a convicted felon. Don was arrested and charged with domestic assault and possession of a handgun while under the influence. The police talked to Candace Bly, and she told them that her husband came home drunk and saw a man in the house. Thinking that Candace was cheating on him, Don began to argue with this man and with his wife, who he ended up pushing to the ground, causing her to become injured. The next day, Candace filed for an order of protection against Don, stating that her husband would often get drunk and throw things, that he was physically and mentally abusive, that she was afraid for her children and for herself. She also says in this that her mother, who she mentions lives on the property, is also scared of Don and like what he's capable of.
Bly filed an order of protection against Wells the following day, writing, quote, "I am afraid of being hurt. He is abusive physically and mentally toward me. I am afraid for my children and myself."
4 days later, on the day of Don's hearing, Candace dismissed this order of protection and the domestic assault charge was dropped. When asked about his past, Don Wells told WJHL that, quote, "It's in the past and we'll leave it there," end quote. Don said that he and Candace had worked it out and she had apologized to him. She had apologized to him. He said Candace went to the DA and the judge and told them she'd made a mistake, and that was the end of it.
I was in Utah, so she was thinking one thing and I was thinking another, you know, but once we got to talk and figured things out, you know, we smoothed it all out. I mean, there was It's just we weren't on the same page, a lack of communication. Because we were fighting, of course, you know, people are going to tell the police whatever to get their way. You know, we worked it out. She's apologized to me.
Candace Bly also has a record in Wisconsin where she pleaded guilty in 2003 to charges of disorderly conduct and domestic abuse. It's unclear who the abuse victim or victims were. That's not included in these records. But that's not all. Don Wells also has an older son, 34-year-old Donald Wesley Wells, who is a convicted sex offender. In Arkansas, Donald pleaded guilty to sexual indecency with a child in 2007. Now, Don Wells also spoke about this, saying the crime his son was convicted of sounds a lot worse than it is. And if he had been arrested in Tennessee, it would only be considered statutory rape, because there was only an 18-month difference between his son Donald and the girl that Donald had apparently had sex with. I have a hard time saying only statutory rape, but those were his words. I think that there's probably a little more to it that we don't know, because I believe the police actually had to track Donald Wells down where he was hiding at his parents' house, if I read that properly, to bring him in. So he seemed to be hiding from this charge. So apparently Donald Wells was 19 and the girl that he slept with was 18 months younger. So that's why Don Sr., he's it's not a big deal. But I mean, did she call and report it? Did she say that she'd been raped? What's going on here? Because I don't know why they would pursue Donald Jr. so hard if, there was just an 18-month difference and it had been consensual and this girl didn't have an issue with it. I don't know. As far as Big Don's criminal charges in Utah, he was not so open when talking about them. He said, quote, "I don't really want to talk about all that stuff. Utah is a whole different ballgame than Tennessee. That's the Mormon state. I call it the moron state. That's just how I feel." End quote. I mean, okay. I don't even know what to say about that. It's funny. It's funny. It's funny playing words, but it's also kind of rude. So I don't know how to feel about that. When asked about the specific charges he had faced, Don responded, quote, "I've had several charges over the years," end quote. So these specific charges in Utah were third-degree felonies for theft, burglary, and forgery, a second-degree felony for theft by receiving stolen property, and a misdemeanor for revocation and suspension. On top of that, 5-year-old Summer Wells was not the first member of her family to disappear. Candace's sister, Rosemarie Bly, was last seen in St. Croix, Wisconsin, leaving her house on August 21st, 2009. So Rosemarie Bly was just about 21 at this time. She was newly married. She was supposed to be meeting her cousin at a bar in Cushing, that's about 5 miles away from her house, but she never made it there. 5 days later, her car was found 30 miles away from her house, abandoned in a tractor-trailer parking lot. She left home with very little money, no credit cards. She's never been seen again. Now, reportedly, Rosemarie and her husband had been having issues for 3 weeks leading up to her disappearance. He'd filed for divorce. He was trying to get a court order to prevent her from coming back and taking their 2 children. I don't know if these were their 2 children or if they were his children. I'm not sure. That's not clear. But before she disappeared, police had responded to the couple's home for a domestic dispute, at which point Rosemarie's husband accused her of slapping him, and she claimed that he had put her in a headlock and banged her head on the ground. Since then, Rosemarie's husband has passed a polygraph test, and I guess he's not considered a suspect in her disappearance, but no one knows where Rosemarie is. Authorities have stated that there's no known connection between Summer's disappearance and her aunt's disappearance, an aunt that she never even met because Rosemarie went missing before Summer was even born. But this just in, because I have Google alerts set up, and this just came up today. All right, so this was posted just a couple of hours ago, and it says, Summer Wells' dad says he's haunted by her aunt's decades-old disappearance. Ooh, Summer and her aunt Rosemarie kind of look alike. All right, so this article says, more than a decade before 5-year-old Summer Wells seemingly vanished without a trace, her aunt also went missing and was never found. And now Summer's dad says the disappearance of Rose Bly haunts him when he thinks about his daughter. So this is what Don Wells told WJHL. Quote, "When you see cases like that, that's why I lose hope in Summer. I want to keep hope, but sometimes I just lose hope and I think, well, maybe we'll never see her again." End quote. So I'm sorry, maybe this guy's just not good at communicating his emotions, but that statement just gives me chills. cases like that are why I lose hope in summer. Once again, this came out today, okay? So it's been about 2.5 weeks since summer's been gone. Not 2 years, not 2 months, 2.5 weeks. And he's already telling the reporters that he loses hope. Sometimes I just lose hope and think, well, maybe we'll never see her again. It's like the whole stages of grief, he's just flown through those and he's already reached acceptance within 2.5 weeks of his 5-year-old daughter just vanishing without a trace. And he has no idea where she is. So yeah, there's that. There is one potential lead, however, that the TBI has released in connection with Summer's disappearance. They have identified a red pickup truck that I guess had been seen in the area of Beach Creek Road and Ben Hill Road in the late afternoon or early evening of Monday, June 14th, or Tuesday, June 15th. So that's the day Summer went missing. The truck was described as a late 90s model or early 2000s model maroon or red Toyota Tacoma with a full bed ladder rack along with white buckets in the truck bed. Now, the TBI was very clear when they said that this person in the truck or whoever's driving this truck is not considered a person of interest or a suspect. It's just somebody that they would like to find and talk to who may have been in the area on this day and who could be a potential witness with information that might help search for Summer. After almost 2 weeks of nonstop searches, officials began to scale back search efforts. The command center was demobilized, but they say that they have multiple crews still on standby in case they're needed. For 2 weeks, there were 1,150 people searching, and they logged 13,000 hours. So that's all the people looking for her. That's all the hours. They covered multiple acres since Summer was reported missing. Captain Tim Coop of the Churchill Rescue Squad said, quote, "Just because we may not be seen as such a large presence in and throughout the area, rest assured that we have not quit and we won't quit until we find Summer Wells," end quote. Yet still, the TBI and law enforcement maintain that the cause of Summer's disappearance is unclear, and they have not officially ruled it an abduction or said that like foul play was involved. And this is just driving me crazy because this 5-year-old girl's gone for 2 weeks. For 2 weeks. She may have wandered off, but she couldn't have gotten far because she's 5. So if the police were on the scene and searching by Tuesday night and Summer had wandered off into like the fields or the woods and she just was hiding, or trying to find her way back home, all these people out there looking, they would have been yelling her name and she would have come out and said, "Here I am." The fact that they didn't find her yet pretty much shows that something's afoot. Right? Some sort of foul play is happening. Tips are continuing to come in. The last time I checked, they had over 700 of them. But as far as we know, they are no closer to finding Summer. If you actually go on like the TBI's website, it literally says like this many tips, they've led to nothing. The TBI has asked the public to stop sending in tips in the form of rumors or conspiracy theories or speculation. The TBI claims that these tips are bogging down the tip line and they are baseless. Personally, I don't know how the TBI would know that they were baseless unless they checked into them, but I guess that's kind of the point. They have to follow every tip they get, so when they get these kind of off the wall ones and they have to pursue it, it wastes time and energy and resources that could be devoted to finding Summer. And so on that same vein, I agree, just people online who think that the parents are involved and who they're probably sending this milk jug video to the police and saying look, don't you think she looks dead? The police are probably a little annoyed by that. So don't do that. It's fine to speculate and to come up with your own theories, but try not to interrupt the investigation unless you think you have something that's really gonna help. But conspiracy theories about her parents, I'm sure the TBI and the police already know that Candace Bly and Don Wells are huge persons of interest, at least online. So I'm sure that they've already pursued that, or they're looking into it, or they are continuing to talk to them and maybe try to get more information. So the only reason I could think to call the police with these tips about the parents is if you thought that maybe the police hadn't considered that a possibility or considered that avenue, and I think they have. I mean, personally, I just can't figure out what I think about this case. I looked at Candace Bly's TikTok. She's been posting there for a couple of months. She posted pictures and videos of her kids. There's the one of Summer swimming. There's this really cute one of Summer playing in the rain and jumping in the mud. And in my opinion, from what I can tell on TikTok, and I know that's not, you don't have to tell me, guys. I know you're gonna be that's not what really is happening behind closed doors. I know. But from what I can tell on TikTok, Candace does really seem to love her kids very much. And she seems, attentive. And, they have their own dynamics. They have their own thing going. They got their own relationships. But I didn't see anything that felt negligent about her or like abusive about her in those TikToks or really from any pictures I've seen. I don't know. I don't really buy that this was a complete stranger who abducted Summer. That's probably the lowest on my theory list. And if it was a complete stranger, it must have been someone who had been watching her for a while, so they would know exactly where to find her and like her routine, and they would know where she liked to play outside, etc. Dr. Alex Del-Carmen, a criminologist and law enforcement expert, believes that there could still be a chance that Summer just wandered off. He said, quote, "We've seen cases where the area has been reviewed by many volunteers and law enforcement, and they end up finding a body or the missing person in the most obvious of places within a certain grid. So I would be the last person to dismiss a geographic area because of the fact that it's already been reviewed or seen by law enforcement," end quote. And honestly, I really hope he's right. I really hope that's the case. But as the days and weeks go by, it's seeming much less likely that Summer simply wandered off and much less likely that she'll be found alive. Thank you guys so much for being here. Pray for Summer. If you pray, think of her. If you don't pray, send a lot of love out. But if you do have tips that are legitimate and you have something that can help the case, here's who you can contact. So if you have credible information to report, call 1-800-TBI-FIND. I will place that up on the screen. It's 1-800-TBI-FIND. And hopefully, one way or the other, we will soon find out what happened to 5-year-old Summer Wells. But I have been thinking about her, and I've been worrying about her every day since she went missing. It's just really tough to like go about my life, and like I'm watching the kids swim and I'm laughing, and then it'll just like come back that, you know, this little 5-year-old girl is not with her family, and she's probably not swimming and having a great time and laughing. She's probably scared or being hurt. You know, it's hard. So I hope that she comes home one way or the other. I hope she's okay. But like I said, it's just seeming less likely. We all know that the first 48 hours are the most important. They didn't find her. She's either not even in the state anymore, or she's somewhere in that wilderness. And if that's the case, you know, she's not alive. But let me know what you guys think about this case in the comment section. Let me know your theories. Let me know what you think about some of mine. I'm really looking forward to discussing this with you guys. And at the end of the day, I just hope the best comes for Summer and her family. And I really hope that her parents aren't involved. Like, I definitely don't want them to be. My gut says they know more. My gut says that it was more than a couple of minutes that Summer was out of her mother's view. And maybe Candace doesn't want to say that because she doesn't want to seem negligent or get in trouble for not paying attention or have it blamed on her. But until we know the exact time that this happened, until we know like the actual time limit that Summer was out of her mother's sight, it's going to be really difficult to figure out what actually happened. So I think that kind of needs to come first. I definitely think that Summer was out of her mother's sight for more than a couple minutes, because all of this happening, her wandering off, she wouldn't get far in 2 minutes. Her being kidnapped by some random stranger who just happened to be driving by, that would take longer than 2 minutes, because this dude, if he's a dude or whatever, he could be a woman, who knows, but this dude wouldn't know the area. He wouldn't be familiar of how to get around. He wouldn't be familiar with the terrain. And if it was somebody who knew her that kidnapped her, it would have to be very well thought out and very well planned for it to go down so quietly within like a 2-minute time period, and then to be completely gone off that hill and like driving away by the time they realized she was missing. So let me know what you guys think. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to my Patreons who hold me down and keep me calm. And I will see you very soon. Stay kind, stay beautiful, stay safe. Bye.
Straight down, and that river runs deep. The mountains get steep, and the voices getting too loud. All these feelings I've buried, it's looking like a cemetery. They're coming back from the grave, calling out my name. Better say a Hail Mary. Well, you don't know how deep it goes until it's killing you slowly. It's all you got to let it go. I got blood on the strings.